Welcome to the Spark by Hollywood podcast. I am your host, Devora Goldberg. In this podcast, I guide my listeners through a deeper look into the parallel paradigm of Hollywood versus Jewish ideas, love, relationships, and empowerment, and uncover which one is truly attainable and sustainable for us as Jews to achieve. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Sparked by Hollywood podcast. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, the founder and CEO of a Jewish dating organization and platform called MoDate. Evan Harris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So to start off, Evan, please tell my audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, and if you can weave that into what MoDate is and what inspired you to start this organization.
Sure. So I'm 26 years old, currently living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I grew up in Long Island and attended Jewish day school, spent a gap year in Israel, and went to college in New York. I grew up with a fairly traditional modern Orthodox background, for all those that know what that is. And while I was single, I felt like there wasn't really a great dating platform for people in my circles. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that were similar to me felt like the most comfortable way of dating was getting set up by friends. And a lot of this was during the time of COVID, so it wasn't like people were meeting naturally.
Right.
And so I figured there should be a way to scale up the system of getting set up by friends. And that's kind of how the idea of MoDate started.
Okay. So it sounds like it's not just an online platform, but perhaps it's an online platform that allows people to properly introduce someone to another.
Yeah. So as opposed to most dating apps, which are just you sign up and then you go on and you're swiping through profiles. Mm-hmm. We have different roles on MoDate. We have connectors and MoDaters. So even if you're married or in a relationship, you could still be a part of MoDate as a connector, where basically our daters need to have connectors in order to sign up. So first we have the connectors sign up, recruit their single friends to become their MoDaters. Mm-hmm. And then each of them fills out a form. The daters are put into the system. We have an algorithm that creates matches based on personality characteristics, religious characteristics. Mm-hmm. The connectors then see the matches, are able to vet them, whether or not they think they're good for their daters. And then if they do think they're good for the daters, it goes along to the dater who has the ability to say yes or no to the date.
Interesting. Now, I'm assuming that MoDate is primarily for Jews, but do you have non-Jews on it? Is there a spectrum of different kinds of people who you find using the platform?
So the vision for MoDate was even more specific than what you're saying. It was really primarily for modern Orthodox Jews. That's the Mo in MoDate. Mm. And the idea was that I'm of the opinion that there is no one size fits all. Even within the modern Orthodox community, there are people that aren't on MoDate that don't think it's right for them. But I think that we really tailor our questions kind of specifically to the modern Orthodox community. All Jews can't sign up, but I think you are more likely to succeed with MoDate if you are a modern Orthodox person, but that doesn't mean that other Jews cannot sign up.
Okay. So if I have anyone in my audience who's not sure what the nuance of modern Orthodox Judaism is, if you can give a little bit more details, because in my mind, modern Orthodox also has its spectrum. Some people are more on the modern side. Some people are on the Orthodox. Some people who are modern Orthodox, well, if it's a woman, they'll cover their hair, they'll wear modest clothes. And someone else who considers themselves modern Orthodox does not cover their hair, is fine with walking with pants, but they keep kashrus at home. They keep Shabbos, they go to shul. So what in your mind would you consider modern Orthodox?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's hard to put exactly a label to it, but basically the majority of our users keep Shabbos, whatever that means, keep Shabbos, and keep kashrus. Those are kind of the two major points of reference, I would say. Definitely there are those that don't, but if they do not now, either they want to in the future, let's say, or they probably
Mm,
have at some point in their past, their family did something like that. We don't really have anyone that was never Shabbos and kosher observant, at least to my knowledge. It's hard to know exactly, but that's kind of the idea there.
interesting. Now, is there a cost for people to sign up to MoDate?
No, MoDate is free.
Okay. And you also have some events that you put on for singles. Can you talk a bit about what your events are like?
Yeah, sure. So we've had a bunch of different events. We've had Shabbat dinners. We've had an event at a restaurant called Tempura in Midtown Manhattan, which has a rooftops like sushi and drinks. And we just had an event at a comedy show. So
Mm,
they all have different elements to them. I think that one thing that maybe differentiates MoDate events from other events is that generally, this wasn't really the case at the comedy show, but generally we have couples at the events also.
mm,
I think that a lot of quote unquote like singles events put a lot of pressure on people to like, this is your one chance. You better meet someone, and it just leads to there being awkward conversations, whatever it is. I think making it more like a get together, well, just kind of the idea of MoDate also, just like it's a community. Like you don't have to be single to be part of MoDate. It's not like we're saying this app is only this
mm.
website is only for single people.
Interesting.
There's more people that could be a part of it.
Interesting. I like that a lot because when you're saying those words that anyone could be part of this, I mean, assuming that the person who wants to be part of this is either looking for themselves or someone's looking for others. But the fact that we have a community around this single topic or interest of helping two people find each other, I find that fascinating because the way I see it is that many times those two worlds are very much polarized. If you're married, you're in the married group. If you're single, you're in the single group. And I see from what you're explaining is that your platform kind of merges the two.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just think that I don't think you should throw away your friends once you get married if they're single. I don't
Absolutely.
think that single people should be very anti-married people. I mean, it goes both ways, you know. It's not just that married people say goodbye to their single friends. It's also that single people don't want to hang out as much with married people. But I don't think that that needs to be the case. I'm getting married in August. I have a old friend group from high school of 10 10 people, 10
Mhm.
guys, and I'm going to be the eighth one getting married, but it's not
Mhm.
like I said goodbye to all my friends that got married already, and I don't think people should. So a big thing with singleness is loneliness, right? That's what people are worried about, but people shouldn't have to feel that way because everyone should be in it together.
Absolutely. Kind of piggybacking on what you said about the fact that there's loneliness. At the same time, on the flip side of the coin, I don't know if you've heard this concept or idea before, but people will say, and I'll hear it many times, I'm not ready to get married. I'm not ready to commit. I'm not ready to date. Do you hear that a lot? And what would be your response to someone who's saying, I'm not ready? Yeah, thanks for having me in mind. I'm 26, I'm 27, I'm 30, but I'm really not ready.
I don't think there's like a clear point in anyone's life where they're ready. I think it's a matter of priority and desire. And I think a big thing that comes with this idea of kind of separating the single people from the married people, which I think is bad, obviously, from what I've been saying, is that it kind of creates extra pressure on people to be quote unquote ready sooner. I don't think people should rush into something they don't want to do. I
Mhm.
think it's really not a matter of being ready. I think it's a matter of wanting to do it. If you met someone that you really like, just happened to be, I think all of a sudden, are you ready when you weren't ready 2 days ago? So
Mhm.
it's I don't really think it's a matter of being ready. I think it's a matter of wanting and priorities, and that's fine. Like you don't have to prioritize it just because the people around you are prioritizing it.
Absolutely. And the way I look at it, I like to get your thoughts on it, but the way I look at it is that again, this polarized idea that you're either single or married, and these are two different entities, even of yourself within these relationships. When I'm single, I'm alone. I'm free. I'm a bachelor, bachelorette. I can do what I want. And then I'm tied in a knot when I become married, when I get married. and I have obligations. And maybe that's the reason why someone says, I'm not ready to settle down. But my idea is that when we look at ourselves, that we are on a journey. And it's not that we're two different entities from being single to being married. Yes, there is an idea. There is a different element of being tied in a knot with someone and feeling that other half of the other person, the communication that goes into it, the relationship, etc. But I feel that people polarize themselves. I'm not ready to jump into that ocean. What are your thoughts on that? When people say I'm not ready, but really it's just a continuation of, like you said, from one day to the next. There's no big, massive explosion of realization. Now I'm ready.
I don't think anyone is 100% ready or anyone is 0% ready. I think it's always a spectrum. And again, I mean, I think it's what you want, right? There are people that want to get married very young. And does that mean they're more ready than someone who doesn't want to get married very young? Like, probably not. I mean, it depends if we're talking about things that you like actually need. Like, obviously, you have to be a certain age. And
Mhm.
also, if you have no financial support externally, then you need to be making money. So those are things that you actually need in terms of readiness. But we're talking about emotional readiness. I don't really believe in it, I guess you could say. I think it's more just wanting and priorities. Like, if you want to make a lot of money first and that's your primary concern before being in a relationship, and you're fine just hustling at work and that's what you want to do for a
Mhm.
few years, then that doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you're prioritizing your career over your relationship right now. And even though you might not plan on doing that in the future, nothing to do with readiness.
Interesting. So you've kind of switched the word ready to the word prioritize, because we all have things in our life that's going on. And like you said, where's your priority? And maybe we can have simultaneous priorities going on in our life at the same time. And as people know, once they get married, the priorities are always shifting, being in a relationship, God willing, having kids, etc. There's always realities that are changing we have to adapt to. So cutting ourselves off of that is not, I guess, moving forward, but I guess people have to come to that realization on their own. So I want to shift a little bit to really the basis of the Spark by Hollywood podcast. Is what I like to do is bring a parallel between what we see, different paradigms in the Hollywood world versus the Jewish world, or some people would call the Judeo-Christian world, the values that we have. There was one celebrity that I saw, forget which one. She was in a couple of relationships over the years. I don't know if she was married and divorced or she was just in a number of relationships, but right now she's single. And she put out this reel that said, I can get up in the morning and I can put my snooze button and I can put on my shoes as long as I want. And I can go do yoga, make my coffee, and then I can crawl back to bed. And single life is amazing. And it's a very different approach that we have in the Jewish or Judeo-Christian world, where we look to God's example, where God created Adam and Eve, and a world where people feel more complete when they are with another person and when they make that relationship work. And I find that there's a lot of Hollywood ideas that kind of infiltrate our world, and we may look up to them whether we want to or not, or we're like, oh, it's good enough for her, it's good enough for me too. Are there any other such myths that you find that people come up with, some excuses, and maybe that you find that you have to debunk along the way in your conversations or uh, in your events?
I think that, I mean, the whole idea of being ready, right, might be a myth that we just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of things that people excuses, right, that we're talking about, are some people, let's say, that are looking for a job and don't have a job yet, and so they're not ready to date.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they think there's a lot of thinking that if you're not properly set up in life, whatever that means, settled,
Yeah.
then people won't want to date you. And so then you don't date. But I don't think that's true. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, also, there are some people that say they'll do X when they get married, but they're not doing it now. It doesn't really make sense to me, because if you want to do something that is like good, objectively good,
Hmm.
um, like having a relationship, I think is objectively good, starting a family, then you shouldn't let your thinking about what other people think stop you. The other side of that, right, is the thing I was talking about people saying, oh, I don't do this now, but I will when I get
Hmm.
married. Like, let's say keeping Shabbos.
Hmm.
If that's a value to you, then, and it's going to be a value to you in the future, I don't think you should stop yourself from doing it now. It's kind of like this idea of how much does reputation matter in both directions, whether it matters 100%, and if I don't have a job right now, then no one's going to want to date me, or it matters 0%, where I can do whatever I want right now, but when I get married, I'll do this. So I think it matters somewhere in the middle of that. I think that people talk
Hmm.
about other people for sure. It's just something that
Hmm.
happens. And so people are going to know about what you do and who you are, probably even before they start to date you. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should A, completely close yourself off, and B, do the opposite, do whatever you want. So I think that people have to find a balance, that like that person who is single and is a celebrity and is enjoying it, like it's good to enjoy it. That's fine. Like you
Hmm.
should enjoy your life. Like we're not saying like you're a failure until you get married, but you have to be able to toe that line of nothing I do matters and everything I do matters. Because once you have a relationship, it's not like your individual life is over. Like it's
Hmm.
still, you still have to get things done, and you still have to make progress in other areas of your life. And so you shouldn't put everything into the up till you get married, you'll try this super hard, and then once you get married, you're done. And you shouldn't not try at all and then try once you get married. You should find balance.
Absolutely. I actually like the way you took that question and you weaved it to a really perfect answer, because the way I like to look at life and the way I think people should have the life view is that we need to know ourselves. We need to know what's good for us. And what I'm hearing from you is that when we don't care about what grandma and the aunts and the uncles and the cousins and the friends think, and we know that what we're doing the right thing for us, it's within our journey and we're following our inner guidance, and maybe we have a mentor, and we know we're on the right path. Discussing it and hearing other people's opinions can actually bring us a setback, perhaps. And I find the value of knowing oneself and just holding strong to it, because the idea, the concept that you're talking about of work, for example, people's work changes all the time. I mean, I'm an interior designer. I'm also a podcaster. There's absolutely no connection between my Spark by Hollywood podcast and interior design. They're two very different things. 5 years ago, if you told me I would do this, I would laugh at your face and I say, absolutely not. I would never do this. But life takes us on a journey down a winding path, things that we don't see. It's coming around the corner, inspirations, strengths that we didn't know we had. So I think it's beautiful that you mentioned we have to lean into it and just allow it to happen at the right time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that you don't know what the future holds even when you find your person. I mean, you have more of an idea, perhaps.
Yeah.
And like it's definitely a new stage of life, more, you could say more settled, or whatever terms you want to put. But
Hmm.
all the other stuff, you don't know. And you don't know, there are still going to be more challenges in life. It's not like challenges are gone.
Exactly.
So it's important to live and just to prioritize. I'm huge on prioritizing, because I think that in life, a lot of times people say they're busy, right?
Hmm.
Like, I can't do this, I'm too busy. If someone told you that your best friend was getting married tomorrow, that you just found out, you would go, even
Hmm.
if you said no to doing something else because you were too busy, because there's no such thing as too busy. It's
Hmm.
all a matter of priorities. And so you have to find the priorities in your life that make you feel best, and just keep you on a path that will continue to make you feel the best.
Absolutely. And perhaps when we make a priority, like, I'll just be open to meeting someone. Let me just open that door. Let me sign up to MoDate. Let me see who's out there and we'll see what happens. It doesn't mean I'm meeting someone tomorrow. It doesn't mean I'm getting married in 6 months. It just means let me just see what comes of it. Let's see who can suggest someone for me. And then you take it as the process goes along.
For sure. I mean, something that any dating app site founder, anything, will probably hear from someone is that they don't do online dating, or that they want to just meet someone naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And to that you say like, okay, like fine. But then if you find out that they're not putting themselves out there naturally, like what does it mean to meet someone naturally? It doesn't mean that someone is just going to pop up, knock on your door and then you're going to marry them. It means you have to go to things where that facilitate meeting that person naturally. You could argue whether or not that's natural, but you have to go to events. You have to like have meals with people. You have to open yourself up to meeting people, because if you say you don't do online dating but you're also not willing to go to various things, then how are you supposed to meet someone?
Exactly. So kind of opening that door and lending yourself to be in that situation in order to meet someone. And that kind of leads me to my next question. There was another interview that I did with Brian Howie. He has an organization and a podcast called The Great Love Debate. So he told me at the time that there are two different kinds of dating. There's either dating for fun or they're dating seriously. How would you parallel that to your platform where people are dating in the Jewish world? Are they dating for fun? Are they dating for marriage? Do they have a purpose in it? What would be the difference?
I don't know what context he meant fun, but if you just use the word fun face value, I hope that people are dating for fun seriously. And
Oh, I
so
like
what
that.
I mean by that is I think people should be dating when you're actually consider yourself dating.
Mm-hmm.
I think hopefully that means you're hoping that one of these dates turns into a long relationship, turns into marriage, turns into a family. And so that is what people consider dating seriously, right? But I don't think that dating seriously should be not fun. Dating should be more fun than it is. Especially in the Orthodox world. I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of people have created this aura of there being rules and things you have to do while you're in the dating process. And a lot of times nobody's imposing these rules, but in some circles, they've just become the standard. And it makes things very tedious almost in the dating process. And it causes people who are in it to actually hate dating,
Mm.
and they do it more out of necessity than out of enjoying it. And I think that's bad. I think that dating should be fun, but it should also be done seriously.
Can you give an example of what restrictions people may feel?
For sure. So I don't think we mentioned this, but I also have a podcast called the MoPod. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of our episodes was called The Stress After the Yes. And so in Orthodox circles, what happens when someone sets people up, whether it's a matchmaker, a shadchan, or a friend,
Mm-hmm.
it's usually that the guy is given the phone number of the girl, or you go through the matchmaker. It's either way, but
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of this period in between when both sides agree to a date and they actually go on the date. It's stressful for the guy because let's say he's given the phone number, then he has to kind of craft up that first text. And let's say it's just a hey, how's it going? This is my name. And then she says the same thing. Then he has to craft up that third text, which is like, okay, how do I turn this into a conversation? So that's stressful. Then there's also this concept of there being a phone call after both sides say yes, but before the first date. And that could also be awkward. You've never met this person in real life. You just saw like a little description of them, and you're supposed to
Mm-hmm.
talk to them on the phone. Like, what are you supposed to talk about? And the guy usually in my circles plans the date also. So just coming up with, oh, what should we do? And depending on time of year and location, like that could also be another stressful thing. And on the girl side, it's all the preparation and all the getting ready for the date and
Mm-hmm.
things like that before the first date. And that time period could be long. It could be a week long between saying yes both sides and actually going on the date. And so I
Wow.
think that there are things within there that could be changed to just be less stressful. I think that one example is that phone call, right? People think it's just the rule almost to speak on the phone before going on the first date. A lot of people are strict about this. And I would say like that is not something that you have to do.
Mm.
If you don't feel comfortable doing that, then do not. Just text.
Right.
And then if that makes you feel more natural, then do it that way. Also, a lot of people say, oh, you have to go to this fancy of a place on the first date or something like that.
Yes.
Like no, you don't. Like you could go, you could choose. And if there's this thought, and I mean I subscribe to this, that like if let's say you were going on a first date and you chose coffee, and
Mm-hmm.
then the girl you were going out with was like, oh, I can't believe they just chose coffee, then that's probably not the person you should be dating and should not be the person you end up with. So I think that a lot of people got to like strip back the layers, and just, there aren't really these strict rules that you think there are.
Definitely people have to take the strides in what makes sense to them. And I think there's no harm in communicating that with the other person. Like you said, whether it's a text message because you feel more comfortable that way, or it's a phone call. But I think that if people take the analogy to setting up a first appointment at a new doctor. Hi, I'm so-and-so. I got your referral from so-and-so. I'd like to book an appointment. Do you have these days available? So it's very courteous. It's very nice. It's very respectful, and it's not getting too deep into the weeds, but you've just made a pleasant situation where it could be awkward, but it doesn't have to be awkward. Just like the secretary who you don't know, this person who you're about to date also, you don't know. So again, like you said, it could be awkward, it could be uncomfortable, but I think if we just like remove that and say, how could I make this seamless and just like a regular conversation, like the Amazon guy who just dropped something off at my door. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. It's really it's an interaction between two people who are meeting each other for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
As we're ending this interview, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with my audience?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just make sure that you're prioritizing your life, that you're doing things intentionally, and just make sure to enjoy it no matter what stage you're in. Also, if you're interested, you can definitely sign up for MoDate at modate.org, and also follow us on Instagram at MoDate613613 on Instagram, and listen to the MoPod on all major podcast streaming platforms.
Amazing. How often does a new episode come out?
Every week. Right now it's Tuesday, might switch to Monday, but we'll see.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Evan. It was a pleasure to speak to you. I wish you much success and a big mazel tov on your upcoming wedding.
All right. Thanks so much.
And lots of luck on your platform. I think you're doing great work.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are loving the Spark by Hollywood podcast, kindly leave me a 5-star review on the platform that you're listening on. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Sparked by Hollywood. That's where the conversations happen. That's where I give you extra content on all my episodes, and where you can send me your feedback, your comments, and questions. And finally, in a world where we are all enamored by the spark of Hollywood and its celebrities, always remember your own spark that you carry within you, that makes you the gift that the world needs to shine that much brighter. I'll catch you in the next episode.